Invincible Season 2 has been so great. It's been the perfect combination of what we saw in Season 1 with so much more, yet there is one clear best element. In Season 1, Omni Man was the most interesting character by far, but he's gone now, somewhere in space, at least for a little bit. The best character, ironically enough now, is his son. I say ironically because from what we've seen in Season 2 of Invincible, Mark wants nothing more than to not be his father. But it seems that Mark could very well become the next Nolan, and if not, we'll be seeing why that is with the multiverse being explored in this season. Let's dive into the gold mine of a character and get to the bottom of...
Might as well give up.
Mark isn't the most special of people. I love that Adam made special better than a lot of the episodes in Season 1, which is a big compliment because those are really good, and yet one of my favorite moments of the whole thing was seeing Mark being just useless as a child.
Dad, look, I'm gonna be duct tape man. Like, even if I don't get powers, I could just tie people up with duct tape.
As a superhero, he isn't the strongest, and he wasn't the most popular kid at school. He has friends, and a lot of them end up being popular, like Samantha or Amber, but he wasn't getting invited to all the high school parties, and everyone knows him and messaging him. He is a good person, though. That is how he became friends with Samantha and started dating Amber. He tries his best to help people in the way that he can. It might be standing up to a bully who is stronger than him to protect, at the time, a random student in Amber, becoming a superhero, and of course, fighting his father. What Mark lacks in ability, he makes up for in perseverance and effort. Like I mentioned in my Omni Man video, which I made last week, that Mark's power isn't being able to stick it in even when no one else or can. He sticks around. He doesn't leave. In Mark's relationship with Amber, Mark made a lot of mistakes, but he did try his best and he did what he thought he could. In the college fight, he ran away so he could protect his friends in the way he knows he can now, physically, even though it pissed them off emotionally. He tried to do what he thought was best, even if it wasn't. I really liked how Mark brought Amber the moon rock for that same reason. He doesn't know how to balance his life as a super and as a teenager. He keeps messing it up, but he wants to get it right, and he is trying, and that shows it. In the fight with Omni Man, that's another example. A regular superhero would have fought Omni Man, either killed him or died. They would have used all their might to get out of the cities as soon as possible and spare lives. But Mark can't do that. He isn't strong enough to beat Omni Man, and because of that, he sticks around. He is beaten to the brink of death, but he maintains consciousness, whether knowingly or not. In Mark not dying or getting away, it teaches Omni Man so much more than any punch or even death could. And in the long term, by getting Omni Man to run away, he's probably saving countless more lives by making sure Omni Man's tyranny doesn't last. His strength comes from being invincible. Yes, physically, but more importantly, he is mentally invincible. At least that's what we saw in Season 1, because like I mentioned, Season 2 is focusing a lot more on Mark and seemingly setting him up to crack. In this latest episode of Season 2, we see Mark fighting the Darkwing replacement in this isolated area and then goes to another dimension where he threatens to torture Darkwing. It's really unsettling. I didn't realize why until after the episode. I mean, yeah, he's a good guy and doing that, it's weird. But I realized it's because Omni Man did just about the exact same thing in Season 1. Season 1 of Invincible, one of Mark's first adversaries were these invading aliens utilizing some form of time travel. They came a few times, but the last we saw of them was when Omni Man went through a portal to an isolated area where he threatens the aliens and then just kills them all, saying Earth isn't yours to take over. Mark didn't commit genocide, but his actions definitely remind me of something Omni Man would do in that same situation. Mark's driving motivation in Season 2 is to not become his father. Cecil is trying to prevent it, Debbie is worried that Mark will lose himself and trying to escape his father's shadow, and everyone is telling him, you're not your father. Mark's thinking that, but if he keeps pushing back and needing to prove himself that, there's something in his mind that's telling him, maybe not. Something I find really interesting is that, again, in Season 1, when Mark was needing to abandon Amber to be a hero, Omni Man supported him, probably due to his pet relationship with Debbie, thinking that he can just come and go when he wants, not caring about her feelings. And Mark did this in Season 1, leading to Amber breaking up with him. And now, Mark is leaving behind even more of her and his friends, and just his life, to be a superhero. A decision which Omni Man previously approved of. In these situations, Mark isn't nearly as bad as Omni Man, but he only seems to be getting worse after the Season 1 confrontation with his father, and not better in his quest to prove that he's not his father. And of course, then we have the alternate realities featured in Season 2, where it's the most likely scenario that Mark is going to team up with Omni Man. We see at the beginning of the season that in another, and probably many universes, Mark is so far gone that he uses random civilians to practice torture techniques, which he then uses on Adam Eve. He is a bit more reserved in this universe, most likely because he's doing this for the greater good and just doesn't love killing like a psychopath. But besides that, he's his usual foe. So, this gets me thinking, why isn't Mark teaming up with Omni Man in this main universe that we're watching? Before I can answer that, there's something I would really like you to do. Subscribing, while negligibly affects you, the viewer, really helps out me and the channel, and I would really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do it. And thank you very much to everyone who has subscribed. In the comments of my previous video, there was a lot of discussion about Nolan pre-Mark's powers. How did he feel about his family? Did he want Mark to get powers or not? Did he like Mark more after he got his powers? In my opinion, Nolan definitely paid a lot more attention to Mark after he got his powers, and then began spending a lot more time with him. That was probably going on at the same time as the aftermath of killing of the Guardians, so that connection probably helped Nolan at the same time of handling what happened. But, in spending more time with his dad, Mark also changed. Before Mark got his powers, he wanted to get powers to prove himself to his dad, but once he got them, Mark had an even greater need to prove himself to his dad, to Cecil, to everyone. And if Mark spent even more time with his dad by getting his powers earlier, maybe by the time push came to shove and his father was ready to invade Earth, Mark's mind would be brainwashed enough and wanting to prove to his dad enough into thinking that invading Earth is the only way to save it, tying back to him always trying however he can, however he knows, like I mentioned earlier. Mark's strength comes from being able to stick around and hang in it when no one else can, for a cause he believes in. But if he begins to think more like his father, then what's right and wrong can be twisted, and then he really becomes his father. We see a good example of this in Season 2, Episode 1. Invincible is working for Cecil now, doing whatever he says, and in this case, it's to shut down the Mahler twins' operation. Mark sees them as evil, and Cecil wants them to end the operation without even knowing what they're doing. But by doing this, they ruin someone's plans of improving trillions of lives, and between the different multiverses and when the machine is active, they probably killed at least 100 people. Here, Mark's power of making people doubt their decisions is used negatively, and it's leading to the possibility of Mark's biggest threat yet. Mark's morals were twisted, with him only out for personal gain, and it resulted in death and, long-term consequences. So what does this mean? Well, Mark is someone who always does whatever he wants for something he believes in. While in Season 1, that's his superpower, the further we go into Season 2, as Mark's objectives change, it may very well be turning him into the person he despises most. If you liked the video, I recently made one about Omni Man, which you'll probably like just as much, but if you've already seen that one, I also made a video a few months back discussing Into the Spider-Verse and how it should be changing the superhero genre in movies and TV. Both of those are great, so make sure to check them out. Thank you all so much for watching. I have been Fictional Fanax. I'll see you in one of those videos, but until then, bye! Father does not want other people's money, especially if it's coming from child. He hates his wife. Coming soon. Breaking Dad. Do 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 do.